Given that 11x minus 1 over 1 minus x all squared times 2 plus 3x is equal to a over 1 minus x all squared plus b over 1 minus x plus c over 2 plus 3x. Find the values of a, b and c. So, partial fractions question. So we need a common denominator. So let's look at the first a term. We can see that we've got the 1 minus x all squared. We started off with the 1 minus x squared there. So the only thing we actually need to multiply here is the 2 plus 3x. So we're going to times this first fraction by 2 plus 3x on the numerator and 2 plus 3x on the denominator. Right, so that's the a term done. Now let's move to the b term. So the b term has got a 1 minus x on the denominator. So it's already got one of those 1 minus x's. But we're going to have to times by another 1 minus x to get a squared. And also a 2 plus 3x. So we're going to times by 1 minus x and a 2 plus 3x. Now let's move to the c term. So the c term has already got the 2 plus 3x on it. So it needs to be multiplied by the 1 minus x all squared. Right, we have now got the same denominator on the bottom of each of our fractions, which means that the numerator, all of this, should equal the 11x minus 1. So let's write 11x minus 1 equals a times 2 plus 3x plus b times 1 minus x times 2 plus 3x plus c times 1 minus x all squared. Right, I'm now going to let x equal 1. The reason I'm picking 1 is because that's going to make this bracket here become 0 and this bracket here become 0. Therefore, that will make the whole of this term and this term be 0 and allow me just to focus on the a term to work out a. So substituting that into the 11x minus 1 and substituting it into the 2 plus 3x, and like I say, these two terms here are going to be 0, so I don't have to worry about them. 11 times 1 minus 1 is 10. 2 plus 3 times 1 is 5. So a is 2. So a is 2. So we can replace that a with a 2. Right, let's now move to the b and the c. I'm going to make another substitution, and the substitution I'm going to do now is x is minus 2/3. The reason I'm doing minus 2/3 is it's going to make this bracket become 0, and this bracket will become 0. So therefore, I don't need to worry about this first term, and I don't need to worry about this second term, and it will allow me to work out the c term easily. So let's substitute minus 2/3 in. So 11 times minus 2/3 minus 1. Like I say, these two terms here will be 0, and we will just get c times 1 minus minus 2/3 all squared. So I will get minus 25 over 3 equals c times 25 over 9. And if I divide, if I were to do minus 25 over 3 divided by 29 over 9, or we could just cancel these out and then times over here by 9, to get. Either way you want to think about this, hopefully you can see that c is going to be minus 3. So let's replace that c with a minus 3. Right, now let's look at the b term. Now there is no substitution that we can make here that's going to allow me to work this out easily. Instead, I'm going to compare coefficients. So what I mean by that is I'm going to expand, or I would think about what I would do if I expanded all of these brackets out, and what x squared terms would I get? So if I did expand this bracket here out, how many x squareds would I get? Well, 0. There are no x squareds there, so I don't have to worry about that. Then, if I expanded this bracket out, how many x squareds would there be there? Well, the minus x times 3x, that's going to be minus 3x squared, which then times by the b, it would be minus 3bx squared. So I've got minus 3bx squared. Then looking at the third term, if I were to expand this out, I'd have a minus x times minus x, which would be a plus x squared, which when multiplied by the minus 3 would be a minus 3x squared. On the left-hand side over here, there shouldn't actually be any x squareds at all. So I've got 0 x squareds on the left-hand side. Now, hopefully you can see that 3b is going to have to equal minus 3, so b is going to equal minus 1. And that's our answer for part A. We've found the values of A, B, and C. So let's go back to part A and put those in the right places. So A was 2. The B is minus 1. And the C is minus 3. Right, let's move to part B then. Find the exact value of the integral of that fraction from 0 to 1/2. So obviously I'm not going to be integrating the big fraction. I'm going to take my answer from part A and integrate that instead. So the first term here, if I want to integrate that, I'm going to write that as 2 times 1 minus x to the power minus 2. I don't want to have this squared on the bottom there if I want to integrate it. So I'm just going to move it to the top with a negative power. Then I've got the minus 1 over 1 minus x. There's no power on the denominator there. It's linear, so I'll integrate that with a logarithm in a minute. And similarly, the third term, the 2 plus 3x. That's linear, so we'll integrate that with a logarithm as well. Right, let's go through each of these and integrate them. So the first term, we're going to add 1 to the power. So the power is going to become a minus 1. We would divide by that power. So we'd do 2 divided by minus 1, which is minus 2. But by the reverse chain rule, I need to also divide by minus 1 because of the minus x on the inside. So dividing the minus 2 by minus 1 will actually make this positive. Then, integrating the next term, this would be a logarithm, so we'd have minus ln 1 minus x But by the reverse chain rule, I'm going to have to divide by -1. So this is actually going to turn it into a positive. Then we've got -3 lots of the logarithm of 2 plus 3x. But by the reverse chain rule, we're going to have to divide by 3. So that's actually going to make this a -1 at the front there instead of a -3. Next, we're going to substitute the half in, then we'll substitute the 0 in, and we'll take those away. So let's substitute the half in first. So 2 times 1 minus a half to the power of -1 plus ln of 1 minus a half minus ln 2 times 3 times a half. So that's me substituting the half in. Now we'll substitute the 0 in. So 2 times 1 minus 0 to the power of -1 plus ln of 1 minus 0 minus ln of 2 plus 3 times 0. Right, 1 minus a half is a half. A half to the power -1 is 2. Multiplied by 2 is 4. 1 minus a half is a half. ln of 1/2 is the same thing as minus ln 2. Remember, ln 1 over anything is the same thing as minus ln of that number. Next, we've got the 3 times a half, which is a half, so 3 over 2, plus 2, so that's 3.5 or 7 over 2. So minus ln 7 over 2. Then, so that's everything from the first bracket. Now let's look at the second bracket. We've got 1 minus 0 is 1 to the power of -1. 1 to the power of -1 is 1 times 2 is 2. 1 minus 0 is 1. ln of 1 is 0, so don't have to worry about that. 3 times 0 plus 2 is 2, so we've got minus ln 2. Next, then, we've got the 4 minus 2, which is just 2. Then we've got the minus ln 2 minus ln 2. So that's minus ln 2 plus ln 2, so they just cancel out completely. And we've still got the minus ln 7 over 2. Right, let's just compare that to how the question wanted it. It wanted it to have a plus in the middle here, not a minus. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take that -1 coefficient here and move it to be a power here, which would leave it as a plus in front. So this would be 2 plus ln of 7 over 2 to the power -1, and all that -1 does is just take the reciprocal, so it becomes 2 over 7 instead of 7 over 2. And this is my final answer for part B. So K is 2 and A is 2 over 7. And we're done.